Okay, so yeah, today's sessions is going to be a 3-session kind of program. And when we were kind of discussing, going back and forth with Venerable Dundrup about what to do for this Sunday class, since there was 3 sessions, I thought kind of interesting. Maybe we could talk about the 3 kind of primary aspects of Buddha nature. And generally, these are described as compassion, wisdom, and power. And power, sometimes I like to think of as kind of the capacity to be effective, impactful, in our experience, and then especially within the context of Bodhisattva journey, Mahayana journey, as we continue to work with our Buddha nature and to work with our experience and cultivating our natural, innate, positive qualities. And so developing an inner strength and effectiveness within ourselves, but also becoming a kind of a beneficial source and refuge for other people as we show up for others in our lives, as we just live our lives out, in our relationships, having our practice be effective and impactful. And so that would be the 3rd session. Today, I was thinking to speak on compassion. And the 3 sessions, compassion, but from a point of view of compassionate presence. And I was thinking to relate these to, with compassion, wisdom, and power, there's 3 deities that are kind of embodiments of those qualities. So the Buddha of compassion, Chenrezig, Zig, is often depicted as kind of representing that kind of natural capacity, compassion. Manjushri is an embodiment, manifestation of wisdom. And Vajrapani is a manifestation of power. But I actually haven't really had a lot of teachings or experience with Vajrapani, but another deity that has it's also especially related to that is Green Tara. So we can practice Green Tara for this kind of develop this kind of inner strength, inner capacity to accomplish what's important and meaningful for us. So we'll kind of weave just general discussions of these topics of what's compassion, what's wisdom, in kind of daily life, ordinary language, but also kind of draw on the deities as communicating kind of certain aspects that we can cultivate in ourselves. So I think how the next few Sundays can go is we'll kind of have an open discussion of compassion, wisdom, and effectiveness, or in our lives, in our practice, and also bring in some meditation of the deities. If that sounds okay. Anybody totally new to any of these concepts? Is that all somewhat familiar? Yeah, so that's how it goes. Thinking. So maybe start with meditation, a little bit of sitting. Maybe do some breathing meditation just to kind of arrive and settle. Just a couple minutes. So if you have a settling practice that you do that's comfortable for you, please feel welcome to do that. I can also suggest settling breathing technique. Start with, if you like, where you breathe in through your nose, you take a full, deep, mindful breath through your nostrils. And then you hold the breath for a couple moments. And then when you exhale through the mouth as if you're breathing through a straw. And just allow this to be a mindful relaxation process. You can do these 3, 4, 5 breaths. And then after you've done those, you feel like ready, you can return to a natural breath. And as you breathe, give your mind permission just to let go of any thoughts this morning or anticipation of today. Just getting to enjoy the sensation of breathing. And you also coming to feel the presence of your body sitting in your seat as you breathe. And then I invite us to connect with the quality of intention for our discussion this morning. Maybe just reflecting on what we value, our kind of inner core values, our values. We value kindness, compassion, peace, love, well-being. And connecting with these values in ourselves, seeing this discussion today as we continue to explore concepts of compassion and developing our capacity for love and compassion and so forth. That our presence today and our engagement today is an expression of our values. In a way, it's an enactment of our values. So it's an action of kindness and compassion for ourselves. And then recognizing that the work that we do on ourselves, the more that we can embody these qualities, that naturally has an impact on those in our life, in our relationships, on the environment, and so forth. So we're also engaging with this sense of being a benefit of self and others. Great. So, go ahead and get started. Yeah, so I thought to kind of focus today a bit on compassion from the point of view of developing compassionate presence. In Buddhism, we define compassion as the wish to free someone of suffering, or wishing for that suffering to be gone, something to be free of suffering. And so there's a natural kind of like that's painful, and it would be better if that's not there anymore, right? And that there can be kind of a kind of trick with compassion where there is that showing up and offering compassion, and it can also kind of turn into like a fixing kind of situation, like I want to try to fix your problem for you, or I want to fix this thing, or I want this, I want it to be gone, kind of quality. And yeah, I don't know if has anybody ever tried to fix somebody or or ourselves, gave unsolicited advice, or that didn't really seem to like kind of click or go. And I think, and so kind of a key component of compassion is the capacity to be with the suffering, before it kind of moves into something. And I think that the etymology of the English word compassion is like suffering with. I think that literally is like suffering with. So that our compassion isn't kind of jumpy or isn't coming from a unconscious place of maybe fear or discomfort or something. And Chenrezig, I like to think this kind of discussion with looking at Chenrezig and Tara as an example. So with Chenrezig, Chenrezig has his legs closed, and Tara, who we see like as an embodiment of an active, engaged, compassionate activity. Tara's foot, one of her feet is out, like her gestures are very active, like she's ready to do something, like ready to get it done, ready to make change, ready to have an impact, and so forth. And Chenrezig has this kind of gesture of a contained, present, showing up, and at the same time being able to kind of bear witness and hold our pain, hold our suffering within this kind of spacious presence, this kind of kind, loving presence. Also, see it has like this kind of a strong chest, but not active in trying to do something. And one of my teachers shared this with me before, and I thought it was kind of a powerful, interesting kind of difference between the two. So that capacity to be with something, be with discomfort, be with people's pains, be with their suffering, and being able to not necessarily feel like we have to, like we can just kind of bear witness. And the word Chenrezig, actually, the meaning is one who looks at all sentient beings with eyes of compassion. So, in a way, I think of that as the gaze being an awareness of presence and being able to bear witness to with compassion. Yeah. Yeah. Any thoughts or questions? Anything coming up?
I was thinking about the fixing and just the level of attachment if I notice in myself if I'm with someone that I don't have a lot of attachment for and they're suffering, I have a lot more ability to just have that resonance and while subtly looking for any opening for some advice, but sometimes none, and that's helpful for the being. But when I have more attachment, like with my family or my children, then this intensity of feeling like I need to do something is much stronger. And so trying to develop some wisdom around there's not a lot of control with the people that I'm highly attached to. So I don't know if you know. I'm starting to see it, but there's not a lot of I still try to jump in. and catch myself where I can, but I don't know if you have.
Yeah. Yeah. Were people on Zoom able to hear? Yeah.
Yes, very well. Yes.
So, great. Yeah. Yeah. Great example. Yeah, and that's the interesting part. So where does that ability to be with suffering, how is that possible, or where does that come from? And so, like, wisdom is kind of like compassion and wisdom really intimately play together. And wisdom, in the sense of knowing, like, the nature of emotions, I think of. And also, I think awareness, like, of what's going on inside of us. I think maybe primary, yeah, like, because there's that kind of like you said intensification. Like, there's intensification that kind of comes up, especially with like family, or where we have some more stake in the game, maybe, or something like that. And so, yeah, it's interesting to find out what's in that reaction. Is my response or my words a stress response, or coming from a place that I feel centered, kind of. So I think one thing with healthy compassion, there's a boundary of, healthy boundary between self and other, and also a healthy boundary between self and the pain. I think that's one thing in terms of working with our pain or suffering, or somebody else's pain and suffering, is that we don't identify with it. So, or we don't identify them with it. Does that make sense? Like, I am not my pain, I'm not my anger, I'm not my sadness, I'm not the depression. There's like, the depression is a phenomena, or it's a feeling that's temporary, it's coming up, it's in my awareness, it's in my being, but it's not who I am. And I think there's the natural tendency is that identification, when it began, everything kind of closed in. I feel like I'm one with my depression, I'm one with my anger, I'm the same with it. Or I'm one with my family or loved ones, my relationship. There's like a kind of fusion where then they become like unconscious kind of habitual intensifications or tendencies like that. Yeah, you mentioned resonance. So there's like a resonance with somebody, like we have an empathic connection, we feel their pain. Yeah.
But it wasn't like dependent on the person. If I have no attachment, that I can still resonate and hold them. But like you said, there's there's not an identification with it. I feel for the person. And I'm able to be more wise. But when it comes to my children, I just know there's fear underlying so much. Their safety, their happiness, their ability to live in a way that's good for them. So identifying that fear, knowing that that's not the place to be helping or fixing from, but the attachment just comes so much up with them.
Mm.
So I guess I'm just trying to identify it for myself so that I can maybe take a step back in those higher attachment relationships.
Yeah, yeah, and I think so fear is present,
And worry, which is of course delusion and self and all that. So I beginning to identify it, but not knowing exactly what to do with that at the moment.
And so there's a difference. So when fear is up in our system, there's a difference when if we acknowledge it, like, oh, I'm feeling afraid right now. Like I feel afraid of my child's well-being or worry for them. There's a difference. Just acknowledging it, like it just kind of releases some of the pressure. And so then that becomes like I'm being compassionate with my own experience too. So I'm afraid. Because sometimes we can we'll have that I'm afraid, and then it's like, well, I can't be afraid of my mother, and I think, what if I'm afraid? Then I won't be able to take care of my kids, and then everything's going blah 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 blah. A lot of what if scenarios, and then we kind of get frozen into them. It just kind of runs. But I think it's one of the messages with Chenrezig is that holding the fear in this kind of compassionate presence, like we have the capacity to be, we have the potential to be with it. And that alone can be a healing. Like we don't necessarily need to even fix the fear. Because somehow, like if we don't get in, because then trying to fix the fear is like another fear response. It's like I'm afraid of the fear, so now I'm trying to fix the fear. And then I have to fix the fear, then also fix my kids. And so it's like we're holding so much, and that's why we get stressed and tight and all this stuff. But like we don't necessarily even need to do anything with the fear other than be accepting and be able to acknowledge it and then see where it goes from there. And like I think when we're able to accept and acknowledge, like then our natural kind of intelligence, like that kind of it just kind of becomes workable, I guess. Yeah, it's interesting. Like I can be afraid, and somehow that starts to kind of manage it, because then I'm not like I feel fear, but I'm not the fear. So then that starts to I start to feel more manageable, and then that gives me more capacity to show up for another person, and like I can feel fear and also still make contact and feel that resonance with another being somehow, because we're not. Like the opposite, when we do the opposite, like it just takes up so much of our resources that like we lose our sense of presence because we're not being present to actually what's happening for us. So, yeah. And a lot of times I have a friend who, he's a Buddhist chaplain up in Portland, and asked him how his work was. I hadn't seen him in a few years after he graduated, and I asked him how his chaplaincy work was going. And I also asked him, like, because he got chaplaincy training in the Buddhist tradition, which usually mainly kind of theistic, kind of Christian training is the position, in our culture. And I was like, how's that going? Does that come up? And he's like, no, really mostly my job is like people just really want me just to be there with them. I don't really it's not even necessarily I'm doing much. It's just my presence and the being with them that takes care of a lot of their needs. Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts and comments coming up? Also, if there's anybody who has anything online, if you want to maybe do the raise the Zoom hand, if you have a question.
Sometimes when I have compassion for other people, the depth of the compassion sometimes increases drastically. And when I look at it, it seems that I'm using their compassion to have compassion for myself. And I get myself mixed up into it. And I'm not too sure whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, whether that's polluting my compassion for them, or bringing my own compassion for myself into it, or whether it's just a natural response.
Can you say more? So you feel compassion for another.
I feel compassion for someone, and by my feeling compassion for them brings up, like, say, a memory of something that happened to me that was very, very similar. And by feeling compassion for them, I might turn around and also feel compassion for what happened to me. And I don't know about the morality of doing that, or whether it's sort of a pollution of their compassion for them, or whether it actually adds to my compassion for them.
Mm-hmm.
I just find it very ambiguous.
Yeah, well, first thing I think of is like when we've been through something similar, like our resonance seems to be stronger naturally, like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the question maybe would be like, what's going when that reminds us of our own history.
Yes.
Whether or not how much that becomes present, like if it's
Yes. I mean, is it the fact that allows me to feel more compassion for them?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it that I'm using them as a tool to heal myself?
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, whether that, I hate to put words like good or bad on it, but I don't know whether it's like a pollution of my compassion for them by using it on myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's when we're like Lama Zopa Rinpoche often acknowledges like as present all through the tradition. Like there's even a praise because sentient beings are objects of our compassion. We generate compassion on the basis of sentient beings. Then they are benefiting us, and they're actually leading us to enlightenment. That's one way of looking at it, because we need compassion. We need the compassion to open our hearts and develop ourselves on that and so forth. So there's a interdependent. There isn't like.
So that independence then sort of beneficial to both of us.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. Yeah, in a way, it's like who's helping who. Actually, I think. Yeah. Because we may be showing up for somebody, and at the same time they're offering us the opportunity to show up for them, which is kind of a precious thing as well. So we're benefiting for sure. I guess it would just be like it's only maybe the thing if I start like, oh, that reminds me of that, and then I just kind of go off in my head, and then I'm no longer present with the other person. Then I'd have to become recognize that and become present with the other person. But besides that, I think I think we're impacting each other, and that's actually interesting. Like making sure it's like same boat like our compassion is like same boat compassion, and like it's not compassion where I am the caregiver, or I am the helper, or I am I am okay and you're not, then like yeah, that's not really a realistic state of mind or whatever. Yeah, it's kind of an illusion or whatever. So we're in this together. I think is from the Buddhist point of view something that we want to wisdom that we want to cultivate. Yeah.
Justin, Alex says in chat, I like what you were saying about just being with the fear, like it's there too with you, rather than it taking over you. It feels that like sometimes, and so, and it's so helpful to pull it apart and just be with it.
Yeah, it's there too, rather than taking over you. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean we can't do something. It just yeah.
We've
I was
lost
reading. Yeah, I have it up on. I have it up on chat. Yeah, it's like
your your microphone has gone down. We're not hearing you quite as well.
okay, that's fair.
Perfect, right there.
So yeah, so Alex online said, I like what you are saying about just being with the fear, like it's there too with you rather than taking over you. It feels like that sometimes, and it's so helpful to pull apart and just be with it. Yeah, and I think that capacity to be with it also takes some of the maybe take some of the pressure off of not knowing, like not having to know what to do necessarily, like having okay, what's the perfect word to say, or what's the perfect advice, or what's the perfect thing to do in this moment. Because that can be, it's almost like I get task oriented, and I lose that sense of just being with the other person, or with myself. Like, I mean, actually, it's the same kind of situation. Like, I get task oriented with myself. I have my self project or whatever. I have to get over my whatever. Rather than being with what's arising and being able to be with what's arising, and then allowing that being and that kind of compassionate presence to then be a starting ground for a response. So then we can respond to something without kind of a reaction. And another comment from online. I found the more I don't fear and try to run, that the overwhelming feelings don't occur much anymore, including anger. I have much less tendency to get consumed with it. Yeah, because it's kind of like an endless chain. Like, it's like we feel fear, and then we're afraid of the fear, and then or I get upset that now I'm afraid again. I get angry that I'm afraid, and then I get angry that I'm angry that I'm afraid, and then and it just becomes this kind of very loop, and it gets at that point it's getting so far removed from actually the primary response that was there, present in the moment, which kind of is what we needed to be able to stay with, to help kind of change and not kind of fall into a spin. Yeah, and how's this landing in terms of the concept of self-compassion, working with ourselves?
I find a big difference because now I live alone, and when issues happen with me or with other people, I have much more silent space to just like deal with the situation. And then when I have my own space again, I go back and I really try to really feel it, and I can see these different layers and different connections of my anger responding and why. It's much more spacious now. But I was a single mother and I didn't have that space. I had no space. It felt I had no space. I could have created space. And now I'm being by my daughter because I didn't create space as a mother for her. And again, she's my big teacher. But when I have space to, in silence, to just sit, literally sit with it, it kind of unravels itself, and it's much easier for me to have these aha moments and see the connections. That's what happens for me.
Any other thoughts? Yeah, I'll just share another comment from the chat. It's from Alex. I have to constantly dial back on being upset with myself that I'm upset at all. It really takes enormous patience when I realize the enormity of the space between where I am on the path and where I want to be.
Can you talk a little bit more about, and this is my problem with being compassionate, I equate the problem with the person who collapsed. And maybe there's not any more that can be said, but that seems to be a skill, because that drives me right into trying to fix something or to fix the person right away without being but that's just me not being present. But I like the idea of looking at the suffering as a separate thing. Can you just talk a little bit more about that? I'm almost there, it's just not all the way connected yet.
The suffering being separate from the person. Yeah.
I can see how that would be a lot easier to speak to someone's Buddha nature rather than speaking to the problem or the issue that they're having, or their attachments or their.
Yeah, so that's, so Buddha nature is very helpful in the sense of establishing a vision of what's beyond that problem. Yeah. Because it's like, well, how can we just be present? How does it works, but like, why does it work? Yeah. It's because of different aspects of reality. So an emotion is temporary. Emotion, when we're looking for it, or a behavior or tendency, all those are just kind of temporary experiences in the mind. They come and go. So if the emotion or the pain is the person, then there should be a continuous 24/7, every instant should be like that. But we know, like, even if we're depressed, we'll have a moment of just like, we'll enjoy something, or maybe a break, or if I'm angry all day while I'm awake, I'm not angry when I'm having these dreams. So there's always, it's temporary, it's changing in nature. So there's aspects of the person that are there that aren't that, right? So that can be one way of looking at it. Like, one kind of contemplation technique for working with people who are difficult for us is to starting to pull back and get more of a periphery vision of who they are. So it's starting to recognize things that we're not recognizing. Like, this person isn't just that. They have this. They wish to be happy. They did this. And then also kind of the nature of the human condition. Usually if they're doing something that's unhealthy or harmful or whatever, it's because there's, emotional wounding, or there's conditions, there's kind of roots kind of that are kind of fueling that behavior or kind of situation. So then that's also not the person. It's just like, that's how they were impacted, and that's kind of developed into this kind of thing, this habit or whatever. So, and then from the Buddha nature point of view, it's more of a kind of profound view, is that just the nature of our minds, there's a kind of fundamental purity and clarity that's the natural kind of quality of awareness that's not, it's like the no matter good or bad, like whatever comes up in our minds, like there's the awareness itself is just awareness itself, and that it's open, infinite, and pure. It's like I like to think of the movie screen. Like there's a white movie screen, blank movie screen, and then the lights are projected on the screen, and we have all the stories, and we see the movies, and we can get so emotionally wrapped up in it and totally forget there's a screen there. That's just blank. That's just there for the next movie. Next movie's a comedy, or the next movie's sad, or next movie whatever. And the screen itself is never actually affected. It always has its same nature, same quality, no matter what is being projected onto it. So that's a more profound kind of way of looking at every being. Every being who has awareness has this kind of purity of awareness that's untainted by whatever is kind of arising in it. Like every thought kind of arises from within this awareness and dissolves into this awareness. It's just that, yeah, we're just not conscious of it. And so we spiral around and the wind of our emotions and dreams and so forth. And is that speaking at all?
No, it's helpful. I'm going to be joining this for a while. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think in a simple way, yeah, it's just like every person's behavior is kind of fueled by some sort of past conditioning. And generally speaking, when it is harmful, it's usually a fear response. Usually fear. Fear is a vulnerability. The vulnerability then leads us to a survival mechanism. The survival mechanism could be anger, it could be pride, it could be aloofness, it could be ambivalence to others, it could be whatever. We kind of armor up and kind of get into these kind of survival patterns that can be very unhealthy based on some sort of vulnerability of the past. And that, in both the Buddhist tradition and Western psychology, but I think it's extensive evidence that that's how we work. And when we don't have that, human beings are naturally kind of inclined to compassion, kindness, and empathy, respect, community. When we don't have that backdrop, that's what the mind naturally kind of goes to. And the same in the Buddhist tradition, like any sort of unhealthy emotions are distortions of reality. Kind of distorted, like very narrow vision of something and not kind of taking in the full picture. So in terms of so there's two things. There's compassion and then there's action out of compassion, right? So we can feel compassion, but feeling compassion isn't speaking. It isn't actually doing anything. So we can, if we're wanting to be compassionate people, first thing is just to actually check if we're feeling compassion. And then if there's something we can offer, potentially, then maybe that can happen. But I think it's we just go to the other, we just got to get this worked out or whatever, this person. And sometimes with people who are in our family system and so forth, we are entangled and invested in so many different ways that it creates a lot of stress, the personal stress. I might have to take on too much. If this person spins out, it's too much. So then I kind of feel like that, and then we lose awareness that that's how we're actually feeling. And then we get overly involved with the other person. And not paying attention to that's how we're feeling causes suffering for us, actually.
But is that the difference between caretaking and caregiving then, when you're trying to be in a compassionate role? Because I cross that line all the time. Is that...
Which one's caretaking?
Well, so caretaking would be, there's a lot of self-centeredness and validation seeking in that, rather than caregiving, where you are being compassionate and active. I'm just talking to myself. That's great. Compassion has a sense of strength, kind of groundedness, peace. And the flip side of compassion is love. And love and compassion are kind of usually, we kind of talk about two sides of the same coin. And if we're always just compassion, and we don't have love, it can get kind of dark. Maybe, or you can kind of fall into that a bit, maybe, or too heavy.
because with compassion, it's like we want this to be gone. Love is like we want you to have well-being. We want you to have happiness. We want you to have fulfillment. We want you to have these things. It's like a positive. Your mind's focused on a positive vision. Like you're seeing like the basic goodness or the goodness in a being, and that's what your mind is kind of tilted, is occupied with. Whereas compassion, you're more occupied with the pain and your freedom from the pain. So love and compassion, like in Tonglen give and take, Tonglen practice, they work together. So they kind of complement each other, so they don't fall too heavy on one other side. And love and compassion kind of balances out love as well. If everything's just love, and very positive, and sunshine and everything good, it can become like overly positive or kind of sticky or too much, where we're not actually acknowledging where we're actually at. So it's like I want them to have all this, or I want to be like this. Buddha nature and so forth. But we also have to be able to be with and acknowledge, but at the same time, they're having a bad day, and so forth. Especially, So I think about Tonglen, like not just doing one side of Tonglen, making sure you do both. So like if we are being with somebody who's having a hard time, or we're being with ourselves, like if we're going through a hard experience, making sure we kind of do both sides of the Tonglen, so we don't just take in the suffering and then don't do anything with it. Like we can kind of send out the loving kindness, like I feel your pain. I wish I could take it, and at the same time I send you love, I send you well-being, I send you goodness. And knowing that it's not necessarily going to fix it, but it's like it's helping us kind of develop that kind of open, warm presence, and it's helping us develop the capacity of ability to be with discomfort and be with somebody in pain. That makes sense. And I think, and maybe also when our lives are busy and it's just like problems, duties, like responsibilities and so forth. And we're just preoccupied with the suffering, and we're trying to be compassionate people, making sure we do the sunshine of love too, so it can open us and give us some strength. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that helps us connect with a vision that's not, it's like love is recognizing the wholeness of another being, like recognizing their goodness and bearing witness to that as we also bear witness to their pain. Yeah, and Alex's points, it's really powerful that realizing the space between where I am and where I want to be, and having patience. So, anything else coming up, folks? I never leave enough time for meditation. I was like, okay, half hour left, we'll get into it. And like, something comes up, I'm like, oh, let's keep going. Maybe we can spend the last bit of class doing short meditation on Chenrezig. Just simple. So I think what we'll do, we'll just bring to mind something that that's challenging for us, ourselves, if you like, and then we'll bring Chenrezig Zig in this space, Buddha of Compassion in this space, and do a meditation with that. And then maybe also bring somebody else in our lives who feel like who's having some challenges, needs some support, and kind of do compassion practice that way. So we'll just sit in silence at first and just allow this discussion to kind of drop away and settle. Just kind of letting go of our thoughts and tuning into our body and our breathing. And the silence and the space of the space we're in. And then within that space of awareness, a few feet in front of you at the level of the forehead, arises a 8-petaled white lotus. And on top of the lotus is a moon disk of light, lying flat. And on top of the lotus and moon disk appears Chenrezig, the Buddha of Compassion. Chenrezig is white in color, seated in a full lotus posture. He has 4 arms. And the first 2 arms hold a dual lapis lazuli at his heart, representing the universal love and compassion of Bodhicitta. In the second right hand, he holds a crystal rosary. In the second left hand, he holds the stem of a lotus flower, which blooms to the left side of his head. Music is dressed in robes of silk and ornaments of jewels. His hair is tied in a top knot loose across his shoulders. He wears a crown of 5 jewels on the forehead. And he smiles with narrow, compassionate eyes like a loving parent for their only child. He sits with an aura of light. And if the details are difficult, the main thing is to have a sense of how we understand the Buddha of compassion in the space before us. It's kind of warm, powerful presence of unconditional love and compassion. It's holding us in a compassionate presence and accepting us as we are. And if you like it, I invite you to bring to mind a challenge that's present for you personally. Maybe something that's not too intense, just something that's been difficult that you feel like you need some compassion or support with. And again, as best we can, just invite you to acknowledge His presence for us. I'm not trying to wanting to fix it or change it or judge it, just acknowledging the challenge is present for us. And at the same time, we wish for it to heal or move through, resolve it. And we can make a request to Charazik, requesting to bestow blessings and purify, heal, support, and let's release any challenges or negativities, sickness, and so forth. And help us awaken our qualities of compassion, loving kindness, and openness. So that we can fulfill our potential and be of great benefit to others. Mm. And Chenrezig's heart begins to flow down a warm and brilliant white nectar and light. The nature of his unconditional love, compassion, kind of awakened compassion of all the Buddhas. And the nectar and light begins to flow down to the crown of our heads. And it flows through our body, permeating every cell in our body. And allow it to heal and release anything that needs to go through. Empowering us with this powerful, compassionate, loving energy. And we begin to hear the mantra of Manipamyo emanating from Chenrezig's heart. And please join in the mantra if you like. You can bring to mind someone in your life that needs support. Can you imagine them in the space here with you? And again, trying to start just to bear witness to their pain, recognizing it's not all who they are. recognizing that it's not all who they are. And we have that which that they can go through it, be free of it. Based on our wish, again, the nectar and light begins to emanate from Chenrezig's heart. And this nectar of healing, acceptance, compassion begins to flow down and envelop them, flowing through them. And healing and releasing them from their pain, and also awakening their natural qualities of compassion, love, kindness, joy. And as the nectar and light continue to flow down, you can hear the mantra emanating from Chenrezig's heart. You can just rest quietly in the feeling of the mantra, compassion, and space of awareness. And then Chenrezig comes to rest above the crown of our heads. And above the crown of the head of the person we are wishing to support. And Chenrezig melts into light and then flows down into us. Blessing our body, spirit, and mind. Present, awaken energy of compassion, wisdom, love. And we feel a sense of oneness with our own body, speech, and mind, and Chenrezig's body, speech, and mind. Which is an expression of our own Buddha nature. And we can dedicate whatever positive, wholesome energy we may have generated together. May cause us to awaken to our full potential so that we can be of lasting value to all living beings without exception, to enable to awaken them to their full potential. May the Supreme Jewel Bodhicitta, this not yet grown, begin to grow. And where it has begun to grow, it may grow increasingly and stronger and stronger. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good Sunday. Thanks, everybody on Zoom. Have a good day.
Thank you, Justin.